All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be giving you guys my first look into the Week 1 prize pick slate in the NFL. Let's go ahead and get into it. And so that should sound a little bit different than what I typically do, which is kind of just figure out where we are getting the best edges by looking at the Vegas data. Now, we are currently getting some Vegas data for a lot of these lines, but what I wanted to do is go through the board myself and see if I think we are getting some big edges. And so we're going to do that, and then I'm going to take a peek at the Vegas edges to see if those confirm one way or another what I was thinking about those props. Should be a fun exercise. And so really the first two that kind of stood out to me were the ones with Jalen Hurts and also Jordan Love. Now, both of them I do think have a chance to get this over, and both of them I think kind of are going to crush. I think this game is going to end up being a very high scoring game. Now, it is going to be in Mexico. Maybe we worry about the field quality a little bit, but those two players I think are going to go off in two offenses that are going to be healthy, good to go, and really ready for Week 1. You look at someone like Jordan Love, guys, last year, he did not have a single week where his full allotment of weapons was healthy for a single week. Now, if Tucker Kraft is healthy heading into Week 1, we should be looking at that. Now, A.J. Dillon, I'm not really counting. He's not someone that was really going to be a big difference maker. He's out for the season. Marshawn Lloyd also included in that. I know a lot of people are like very excited for him, but in terms of like big movers in the offense, they are healthy. And so very interested to see how he looks in that regard. Remember last year, guys, Week 1, Christian Watson was out. And then throughout the season, they just had a plethora of injuries just occur. So those two lines definitely stood out to me. But the one that really stands out to the most is actually going to be Trevor Lawrence going against Miami. This is another game where I personally see it being more of a shootout going against Miami. Again, should be good weather. We don't know the weather. It could be rainy, I guess. But this is a spot where I think just looking at some season-long prop bets as well, I made him the cover boy for the updated season-long props video. It seems like the markets are thinking that Trevor Lawrence is not going to have as good of a season this year. And probably that's due to Calvin Ridley not being there, but they brought in Brian Thomas for a reason, and they brought in Gabe Davis. I think those are two players that are going to be very good downfield threats for Trevor Lawrence. And so I don't see that being an issue. And again, I think this game is going to be more of a shootout. I'm very happy to bet Trevor Lawrence over 250.5 passing yards. And the thing with it is, as always with these passing yards props, if we have the ability to stack, we're going to want to try to do that. So we'll see if we have any that we could potentially do later on. And then just looking at it, Bryce Young maybe a little bit, Kirk Cousins, I don't mind that. That's probably it for the ones that were surprises. So while we're on passing yards, let's go ahead and jump on into the cheat sheet to see if any of those three, Love, Hurts, and Trevor Lawrence, are really standing out. And so we have it pulled up here. Jordan Love does have a big prop line difference compared to what Vegas is saying, but they are heavily favoring the under of 270 there. So it's not really an edge there, but I still think I like that. I mean, the fact that the average Vegas line right now is at 270, I think that is a good indication that it could be a good line. And just as an FYI, the reason why I don't really care about Vegas data just yet is because we're going to get so much more lines coming in there, and obviously weather will be a factor there as well, so we don't want to go too crazy too fast. But Trevor Lawrence is also an interesting one there, 250. The lines are basically the same there, so I guess no shock there. And then looking at Jalen Hurts, no big shot there. So the lines that we do have coming in from Vegas are kind of a green with the PrizePicks and Underdog lines for the most part. So now let's go ahead and jump on into the rushing yards. And really looking through this, I wouldn't say that there is really a very big egregious one. I mean, we know Jonathan Taylor dominates Houston. Maybe that trend continues. I would say Joe Mixon against Indy. That's kind of an interesting one for the over. Okay, here are a couple. So Aaron Jones, I mean, this is a strange one, guys. Aaron Jones at 54.5 rush yards. I'm wondering if Vegas thinks that Kevin O'Connell is going to be a little bit safer with Aaron Jones as an asset. At the same time, they're going to be in win mode right away pretty much. They're going to need to be aggressive with his workload. They're not going to be able to limit his workload, I don't think. Ty Chandler is a great running back, don't get me wrong, but with them being without TJ Hawkinson and with them having to start Sam Darnold, he's going to have to be a focal point in this offense along with Justin Jefferson. And I think the fact that Justin Jefferson is there should alleviate a little bit of pressure off of Aaron Jones. But given the matchup with the Giants, I'm not too worried about that. But I mean, this is just a crazy low number. A different situation, don't get me wrong. He's not going to have as heavy of a workload that he had last year at the end of the season that he had with the Green Bay Packers. But we only need him to get around 14 to 16 carries, and I would imagine he'd be able to get this over. At the same time, I also really like Devin Singletary as well to get over 50.5 rushing yards. I do think that this is a game that the Giants potentially should win. I mean, this is like a battle of the bad teams on paper this year. But I do think he's going to be someone that they really do try to pound to the ground. I think he's going to get a heavy workload early on in the season. And in this matchup against Minnesota, that's a matchup that I really like. And actually, let's pull up their game logs on DraftKings, because I'm pretty sure, I mean, Aaron Jones obviously crushed that over last year. Once he got healthy, he just went on a tear. We know that. The 21st best matchup, so a strong matchup there for him, which I like to see. And then looking at Devin Singletary, the Vikings were a little bit tougher against the run, but I think that's just mostly they're terrible against stopping receivers and the passing weapons. But he averaged 52, and we know at the start of the season last year, the Texans really weren't giving him that big of a workload. I expect to see much closer to like 13, 16. I expect him to get a lot of work, at least in this game. And so those are two that stand out. And then actually Kyren Williams as well. 64.5 seems to be egregiously low. And I know the last game that he had was against Detroit, where he only had 61. And I wonder if this has to do with the punt return news. I'm pretty sure he was the punt returner at the start of the year last year. I think this is more of one, Sean McVay does really have a lot of faith in Ronnie Rivers and also Blake Corum as backups. I've mentioned a bunch that Rivers has looked a lot like Kyren Williams as a backup, and then you have Blake Corum, who obviously looks like both of them. And so if Kyren were to get injured, maybe just has a little bit more faith in those two. I also wonder if those two are just like zeros special teams wise, and so they're forced to play Kyren Williams in the punt return position. It's strange, but I think that's why we're getting such a low number. And maybe he doesn't get as big of a workload as he had last year. At the same time, he still gets 18 carries. Should be able to get that over. So an interesting line. I don't know if we need to go out of our way to target that, but one I'm going to monitor, that seems like a low number. And then let's go ahead again and jump back into the 9-to-5 cheat sheet, just seeing those lines. And so, Aaron Jones, okay, so fascinating. So the line on PrizePicks is actually higher than Underdog and higher than the average sportsbook line. So that'd probably be a bet that we would want to just bet on Underdog there. If you guys are agreeing with me that line seems to be a little bit too low. Oh, and then on PrizePicks as well. They're the highest of the bunch for Kyren Williams as well. Interesting there. And then Singletary even split there. So interesting there. And again, guys, we're just not getting that many Vegas lines just yet for all these games. Come Monday, probably Tuesday, I guess, it's gonna be ready to go. And just as an FYI, while I'm on that, guys, on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, but so for sure on Wednesday we'll have the tools fully loaded, ready to go for the Thursday night showdown and everything like that for NFL purposes. So, and what I mean by that, Underdog, PrizePicks cheat sheet, the NFL cheat sheets should be good to go as well. And now, lastly, let's go ahead and jump on into these receiving props. And so, kind of right away, I would say Zay Flowers' line kind of sticks out to me a little bit to be a little bit too low. Isaiah Pacheco might be decently involved in the passing game. I don't know if we need to go with that one. And getting back into this Philly versus Green Bay game, if we do, and in my head, I think I do want to be stacking that game in terms of prop bets, I think we should do it. So what I find interesting, look at A.J. Brown's receiving yards total, 72.5, compared to Devonta Smith's at 59.5. I find that to be strange. I mentioned this a decent amount last year, which made me look dumb at the start of the season when A.J. Brown kept going off, but I'm like, these two are extremely talented. I think Smith is... I don't really know why he doesn't get the same amount of love that A.J. Brown does. Is it just because he's like a small, skinny dude compared to A.J. Brown, who's just like more of a force? But in terms of talent, I know they're different talents. I get that, but I don't think there should ever be that big of a difference in their lines. It just probably comes down to matchup. And I just... maybe 5, maybe 7 receiving yards difference, but there should never be that big of a difference. And so just naturally looking at that, Smith's line seems too low. And also, guys, I don't know what's going on here with Christian Watson's line. This is vastly too low as well. He should be healthy in this game. And if he is healthy in this game, this is just egregiously low for him. Like he could get this in one play. And don't get me wrong, I know Wicks is there and we're not getting lines for him, but really all the lines for the Packers are kind of low. Romeo Doubs is pretty low, 38.5. I would imagine he'd be able to have a good game. The one player I'm wondering about with Jaden Reed is how much work is he actually going to get out of the Packers backfield, which might sound weird to say because they have Josh Jacobs there, but they do not have really, I know Jacobs is a workhorse running back. He's going to be treated as a workhorse. I don't care about what fantasy football people have told you guys. That's why they brought him in, especially with Lloyd being banged up. They're not going to want to give Emmanuel Wilson too much work. But the actual third down back in some situations might be Jaden Reed. And maybe he's someone where if his rush and receiving yards, and are we getting that market? We are. Is Jaden Reed? Yeah, like I think this would be the approach to go with Jaden Reed, guys. Like I think he will get some looks out of the backfield, maybe some swing passes, maybe they're receptions behind the line of scrimmage, end arounds. Now, end arounds, I think Christian Watson's going to be involved this season as well, but Reed is a little bit of a gadgety type player as well. And so I think that would be the route that we would rather go there with him. I'm actually surprised that it makes sense why it's only 2 for a difference, but I feel like that'd be the route I'd rather go with him. But for me, just right away, Christian Watson, that one stands out. All right, let's continue on. Christian Kirk as well. All right, so this is making sense. So maybe I'm just a little bit higher on these certain spots than Vegas is, and hopefully we get an edge. Hopefully by this time next week, when you guys are watching this, these lines are all bumped up by 10, and everyone that watched this, well, I guess I should say when you guys are rewatching this at this time next week, we had already got a big edge on these. But this is crazy. Kirk, assuming he's healthy, he's a little bit banged up, but again, I think this is a great stacking opportunity for this game. He should be the safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence this year. And I know Gabe Davis and I know Brian Thomas are going to command down the field targets, but Kirk has the receiver number 1. We saw him light it up last year at times, and obviously 2 years ago was a stud. And so assuming he's healthy, I think that's a great overline. Oh man, Deontay Johnson at 44.5. I get it, going against that Saints defense, a little bit worrisome, I guess. Bryce Young, who apparently has looked really improved in camp, probably due to Deontay Johnson, but this is a low number for him. This is probably a quarterback upgrade for him from the past 2-3 seasons. And I get that this is like predicated on this being a tough matchup. I get that completely, but he showed consistently that I was able to get this over last year, again, with bad quarterback play and really just kind of a bad offensive system. And again, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case. It's going to be more improved here, but it shouldn't be any worse. And it's going to be tough not to like there. All right, what other ones do we have? Terry McLaurin, I don't mind there. A little bit surprised at Amari Cooper's low line. I wouldn't say that's like egregiously shocking, though. The rest makes sense. And as I'm recording this video, guys, we are only getting a few receptions props. I actually don't mind these 2 for the over, but we don't need to go crazy with that. I'll have my typical Thursday night video out there for you guys as well. And so again, just real quickly, let's just take a peek at these receiving props and just kind of scrolling through based off of, are we getting an edge or not really at all? And there's not many where we're getting a big edge just in general. Again, a little bit too early as I'm recording this video, which will be interesting to see if my thought changes based off of the Vegas data or not. Week 1 is the week in which we are getting the biggest edge against Vegas in general. And so for prize picks, for underdog purposes, I don't think I need to go like too crazy based off of what Vegas is thinking. That's a big edge that we had last year as well, mostly in NFL DFS, but also prop betting. All right, so I'm going to show you guys kind of a recap of those bets that I like for you guys to choose how you want to use them. But first, I want to remind you of a promo code that's currently going on the 9 to 5 website. Use the promo code KEEPCASHING to get 20% off your 9 to 5 membership. So get your first 9 to 5 membership for just $8 for that first month. It's typically a $10 membership, already priced that way for you guys. If you guys are someone that was a previous member for last year's NFL season, you can re-up using that promo code as well. And then also, if you guys are looking to use any of these prop bets on PrizePicks, never signed up before, use the promo code 9TO5, and you guys will get an instant $50 when you make your first bet of $5. So a great deal they have going on right there. Take advantage of it. All right, so this first one, I'm mostly just trying to show you guys the stacks that I like. If you actually place this bet on PrizePicks, that is, you can place it on DraftKings and FanDuel or those spots. I don't think the payout is nearly as bad as it is on PrizePicks. Because this bet correlates pretty heavily, they really decrease the payout, just as an FYI. So don't do that. If you want to go 3 of these, you could do that. You're kind of pick and choose your spots here. But again, I like Jordan Love paired with Christian Watson. That line for Christian Watson seems egregiously too low. I get it. They have 4 receivers, 2 good tight ends, Josh Jacobs there. The thought of the unknown is really why that line is so low, but he is the receiver number 1. I don't think there's any question about that. Very interesting line. And then Jalen Hurts paired with Devonta Smith. I kind of think that Hurts line is a little bit too low. You're going to have a first-time NFL defensive coordinator. He's not a first-time defensive coordinator, but first-time being a defensive coordinator in the NFL. That is former college football coach for the Green Bay Packers there. And it'll just be interesting to see how he adjusts. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to have a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore there as well, kind of a proven commodity. You would assume that passing game would be better. And then again, looking at Devonta Smith, I just don't see why there's that big of a difference there. I don't think that should be happening. It's a very strange line. And then Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk, I personally just really like that game. And if that game is going to be a fun one to stack, I want to get pieces of that. And I would say Trevor Lawrence's line is a little bit too low. And then we go ahead and jump into those running back lines that I kind of liked. Devin Singletary for his over rush yards. Kind of weird to play 2 running backs in the same game, but that's what I'm doing. Aaron Jones for over his rush yards as well. The thing with Devin Singletary is that offensive line for the Giants looked great during the preseason. And I know the preseason has a lot of backups in there and whatnot, but they did a good job of making the running backs look good, and the running backs did look good. They did not mess up the plays. And so now you give Devin Singletary that opportunity. I'm excited for that. Looking at Aaron Jones, kind of in a fine matchup going against the Giants, I think he's going to be able to go off. It's just a matter of how much work does he get. Does Ty Chandler eat into his workload a little bit more than I'm expecting? Kyren Williams as well. Maybe Blake Corum is a little bit more involved. Maybe Ronnie Rivers is a little bit more involved than everyone's thinking, except for me. We'll see. I kind of have a bold call on Ronnie Rivers, I guess. I don't know. I just been taking Ronnie Rivers at the end of best ball drafts and drafts in which I have taken Kyren Williams or Blake Corum. I just feel like it would be a 50-50 split if Kyren were to get injured for Corum and Rivers, because McVay would trust him a little bit. Anyways, weird tangent there, but I still think we're going to see a heavy workload go to Kyren Williams, because that is what Sean McVay has kind of always accidentally done. I don't think he really wants to do it. At the same time, you kind of run the hot hand. And then Deontay Johnson, that's just such a low line. And I know the Saints defense is great, but that's just such a low line. He could get that in the first quarter. I doubt that. I don't think Bryce Young is going to play as poorly as people are really thinking, as that line would suggest. And Deontay Johnson is an elite route runner. He's able to get open a bunch. We saw Adam Thielen dominate there with Bryce Young, and now you add on Deontay Johnson, who's definitely better. I really like that line. So I will be doing a more formal video once we do start to get those Vegas odds coming in as well, to give you guys that breakdown. But I thought this was fun. This might be something I do each Monday as well before we really get all that Vegas data, because I think there can be an edge there. All right, thanks for watching. If you guys want access to any of the tools, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Make sure to use that promo code if you've never signed up. Give a like and subscribe. Do appreciate that. And as always, let's keep cashing.